Every Tuesday morning, for nearly 8 months, a brown and white beagle appeared at the entrance gate of a Kentucky animal shelter. He bit Barney, he scratched the fence, the staff named him Biscuit, but they had no idea who he was, where he came from, or what he was waiting for. Until one phone call shattered the mystery.
Toca fue Pireng.
Woman crying so hard she could barely speak. Biscuit had belonged to her father, a 74-year-old retired schoolteacher named Walter. For 3 years, Walter had volunteered at that very shelter every Tuesday morning. He walked dogs, cleaned kennels, and sat with animals that nobody else came to visit. He used to tell his daughter, those animals didn't choose to be forgotten. Somebody should remind them they still matter. Walter always brought Biscuit with him, and Biscuit loved those Tuesday mornings more than anything. The smells, the sounds, the rows of kennels where frightened animals slowly relaxed when Walter knelt down and spoke to them gently. Then, Walter had a stroke. Suddenly, without warning, on a Wednesday afternoon while reading in his garden. He survived, but little by little, the life he recognized started disappearing. First his speech, then his strength, then the independence he had protected his entire life. And the Tuesday volunteer shifts ended. Biscuit knew something was wrong long before the family did. Dogs always do. He stopped eating his full bowl. He started sleeping beside Walter's shoes instead of on his own bed. And every Tuesday morning, he stood by the front door and whined softly until someone moved him away. Because dogs don't understand death the way humans do. They only understand that love used to happen here, and suddenly it doesn't anymore. When Walter passed away peacefully 4 months later, Biscuit disappeared from the backyard the following Tuesday morning. The family searched the neighborhood frantically. They called his name, they drove the streets, and then a shelter staff member called them. There's a beagle sitting at our front gate, she said slowly. He's been here since sunrise. He had walked nearly 2 miles, retracing a route he had traveled dozens of times beside Walter. Past the gas station on Maple, across the park with the broken fountain, down the long hill that Walter used to take slowly because his knees were bad. Biscuit remembered every turn Walter ever took, and when Walter's legs could no longer carry him there, Biscuit carried the memory instead. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Do not fear, for I am with you." And watching that little dog sit alone at the shelter gate, it honestly felt like love itself had shown up, wearing paws. The shelter staff let him in that morning. He walked directly to the row of kennels where Walter used to spend the most time. He stopped in front of a kennel holding an old arthritic German Shepherd that had been at the shelter for over a year and had never once been adopted. And Biscuit lay down in front of that kennel and stayed there for 3 hours. The staff stood at the end of the hallway watching, not one of them willing to speak. Because some moments feel too deep for words. And every person standing there knew they were witnessing one of them. Have you ever seen something your mind couldn't fully explain, but your heart recognized instantly? The following Tuesday, Biscuit appeared at the gate again. And the Tuesday after that. The shelter director, a woman named Paula, began unlocking the gate for him every week. She left water near the entrance, and she made sure the German Shepherd's kennel was always open when Biscuit arrived. The 2 animals had never been formally introduced, but every Tuesday they lay beside each other in complete silence, as if Walter's kindness hadn't disappeared at all. It had simply found 4 legs and kept going. Paula told a local journalist something that made it into papers across the country. She said, "In 22 years of running this shelter, I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen an animal grieve by serving. That dog didn't stop loving his owner. He started loving what his owner loved." Read that again. He didn't stop loving his owner. He started loving what his owner loved. Proverbs 12:10 says, "A righteous man cares for the needs of his animal." But somehow, after Walter was gone, Biscuit became the one protecting his owner's heart and legacy. Word spread. People started coming to the shelter on Tuesdays just to see Biscuit arrive. Something unexpected happened. The attention brought new visitors. New visitors brought new adoptions. The German Shepherd that Biscuit visited every week was finally adopted by a retired couple after 14 months of being passed over. One loyal dog, making the same lonely walk every Tuesday, gave another forgotten animal the ending it had waited over a year for. Tell me honestly, does that sound like coincidence? Or does it sound like love refusing to die? But here's the part of this story that very few people heard. Walter's daughter eventually came to the shelter on a Tuesday to watch Biscuit arrive. She sat in her car at the end of the street and watched him trot confidently up the hill, ears bouncing, nose working. She said she expected to feel sad. She expected tears. But instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. She felt her father. Not as an old memory, not as a picture hanging quietly on a wall, but as a living piece of her father still moving through the world, still showing up, still comforting the forgotten, still teaching people that real love doesn't disappear when a heartbeat does. She walked up to Biscuit at the gate that morning. He turned, looked at her for a long moment, then pressed his head into her hands. And she knelt down on that sidewalk and held him for a long time, while the shelter staff quietly looked away and gave her the moment she didn't know she needed. Revelation 21:4 says he will wipe every tear from their eyes. And maybe sometimes healing begins with something as simple as soft paws quietly refusing to leave your side. Biscuit still comes every Tuesday. Walter's daughter now comes with him. Together, they walk the same route Walter walked, past the gas station, across the broken fountain, down the long hill. If this story touched your heart, comment Biscuit. Because maybe the people we lose never truly leave us.